going to have to discuss them, and that's what that's a forum for, and I certainly appreciate you calling them. And if you listened to 2 weeks ago, we did report 2 different segments that we called the good news. Joining Scalia was Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Samuel Alito and Anthony Kennedy and Clarence Thomas. The other dissenters were Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and David Souter. Gun rights supporters held the decision. I consider this an opening salvo and a step-by-step process of providing relief for law-abiding Americans everywhere that we have been deprived of this freedom, said Wayne LaPierre, Executive Vice President of the NRA. The NRA will file lawsuits in San Francisco, Chicago, and several of its suburbs challenging handgun restrictions there based on Thursday's outcome. Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, a leading gun control advocate in Congress, criticized the ruling. I believe the people of this great country will be less safe because of it, she said. The capital gun law was among the nation's strictest. Mr. Anthony Heller, 66, an armed security guard, sued the district after it rejected his application to keep a handgun at his home for protection in the same Capitol Hill neighborhood as the court. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia ruled in Heller's favor and struck down Washington's handgun ban, saying the Constitution guarantees Americans the right to own guns and that a total prohibition of handguns is not compatible with that right. The issue caused a split with the Bush administration. Vice President Dick Cheney supported the appeals court ruling, but others in the administration feared it could lead up to undoing of other gun ban regulations, including a federal law restricting sales of machine guns, other laws keeping felons from buying guns. I would like to report today that we have some good news. People in Washington, D.C. can now own a handgun. After 32 years, we're reporting some good news. This verdict by the Supreme Court we should consider a win for the Second Amendment. But they still upheld restrictions, a clear violation of the Second Amendment. But we will not be fooled. We know they have greatly oppressed our Second Amendment rights. This is but a small victory. The public must never be disarmed. And those that propose this liberal agenda are to be considered our biggest traitors and enemies. We must stand on and defend our constitutional rights, never submit to the oppressors of our civil liberties. When we have a victory, we must celebrate it. And here we have a small victory for the Second Amendment that happened the week before last, and this is this week's good news. All right, this is being reported in Los Angeles Guardian. If you'd like to call in, 336-499-0681, 704-873-1400. I know there's got to be some people out there that's happy to have their Second Amendment rights. Homeless people living in cars and motorhomes across the U.S. are being joined by a new breed, the middle class. As mortgage foreclosures continue to rise, growing numbers of middle-class professionals are losing their homes and downsizing from 4 bedrooms to 4 wheels. With numbers rising, New Beginnings, a homeless agency in Santa Barbara, California, has launched a safe parking scheme whose aim is to provide a refuge of sorts for those who have nowhere to go other than their vehicle. Call?
Yes, Baron, this is Dave. How are you today?
Hey, Dave. How you doing today?
Good. This morning, the Charlotte Observer, the Nation World section, G8 meets as economy storm clouds thicken. And it struck me immediately that, coincidentally, the G8 conference, which, for those of you that aren't aware, comprises the United States, Japan, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Italy, Canada, pretty much the world leaders. It's kind of, it seems a little strange that just 2 or 3 weeks after the Bilderberg conference, it's almost like this takes second place. I get the impression that a lot of the things outlined in Bilderberg can now be refined into G8. That's just my opinion, the way that looks.
I agree with you.
We saw many things come out of Bilderberg, and the very next day, Ben Bernanke gave a speech in which he used the word inflation 11 times, which he hadn't done in the previous 6 months.
Yeah. Apparently there was a decision made during the Bilderberg.
Absolutely.
Another thing, coincidentally, too, the price at the pump started slowing down. The increases started slowing down dramatically right after the Bilderberg conference. Prior to that, it was rising quite quick. I get the impression that they might have discussed it, and they might have decided we pushed the peasants too far. Let's back off.
What's your opinion on how far we've come in 232 years, Dave?
Not very well. Not very well. It appears that apathy rules. Apathy rules. Try to convince anybody that there's much of anything wrong, and all they know is the gas prices are up, and eggs and milk cost more. The thinking doesn't go really much farther than that. It's really sad. People have become so complacent. They're a lot of them are like political zombies. They just either choose to ignore it or don't want to hear it. It's really a shame. It's playing into the powers that be's hands very well. The Bilderberg people, I'm sure this is their greatest ally. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for what you're doing for everybody. I know it's not easy. To get to anybody to listen. I know I'm having trouble.
Hey, we appreciate that. Hey, we got an extra thick skin here, so we do appreciate you calling in. Feel free to call in anytime.
Okay, Troy, thank you.
Thank you. And, on this week's call to action, I have several people that are close and dear to me that are going through a medical crisis. I want to call on everyone to pray for healing in not just one, but in 3 soulmates that are in the midst of troubling times. And this week's call to action. We have a poll every week. If you listen to the poll, it's representative of what we cover on the radio each week. Last week, week before last, it was the press's silence on the impeachment process, the government for its histories of atrocities to the Indians, North Carolina legislators for not following Oklahoma's lead, Michael Reagan's all by the bullets comment, and Russia for not causing some rain here and stopping it out west. And the winner is the government for its history of atrocities to the Indians. Next week, we have a special guest. It's going to be John Vishon of Americans for Immigration Control. We had him on a few weeks ago, and he's made a DVD documenting what's going on the southern border. He sent us a copy. It's amazing. It'll just it'll blow your mind. I'm going to check and see if it's on YouTube, but he will be with us next week live, and we'll be talking about what's going on our southern border. And again, we're going to be in Moxville hopefully next week at the studios of WDSL, broadcasting live from there at the car show. Come by and see us, meet us. We'd love to meet you. And our quote this week again is, when the people fear the government, you have tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have liberty. And on this July 5th, for Farron, Brian, Jim running the camera today, I want to thank everyone, the station, and until next week, this is Farron saying, God help us all.
All right.
That's all right, look.